What is the one thing you hate doing on your layout more than anything else? Today we're going to talk about the tasks which model railroaders say they don't like to do. That's coming right up. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. We model railroaders love the hobby, but there are some tasks that we don't like doing on our layouts. Today I'm going to talk to you about some of those tasks and why we don't like to do them. At the end of this video, I'm going to tell you which task I most hate to do. Can you guess what it is? Don't worry, I'm going to tell you. After watching this video, I'd like you to go down to the comments section and identify the one thing you most hate doing on your layout. I will count up the results, and in a week I will announce those results in a follow-up to this video. Okay then, here are some of the things we say we hate to do on our layouts. First, ballasting the track. I'll bet you've heard this one before. A lot of model railroaders say they hate to do ballasting. And here's why they say they hate doing it. They say it's time-consuming, it's boring, it takes a lot of effort to get halfway decent results, and they say they would rather be doing other stuff on the layout. So does anyone enjoy ballasting? Well, apparently some people do. Those who enjoy it say it's easy, it's relaxing, it's therapeutic, and it adds a lot of realism to the layout. At first I had problems with ballasting. The ballast gummed up or floated away when I tried to use a spray bottle to make it wet before applying glue. And I became very frustrated when I tried to apply ballast to the sloping sides of my Cato Unitrack. So I stopped what I was doing and dedicated myself to learning better techniques for ballasting Cato track. I began to apply full-strength white glue to the sides of Cato's plastic roadbed, and then I sifted the ballast onto it using my fingertips. For subsequent applications of ballast, I used an eyedropper or pipette to apply alcohol to the ballast before applying a 50-50 mix of white glue and water, and again sifting the ballast on with my fingertips. Ballasting became easier and more satisfying when I changed my techniques. I was actually pleased with this method and with the results. Here's the prototypical look I was going for and my results. I discovered that Cato Unitrack looks just as good as any other brand of track once you paint and ballast it. You shouldn't be in a hurry when you apply ballast. It takes time and it takes patience. You can do a section of the layout or a couple of feet of track at a time. And you should certainly operate the layout for a while before applying the ballast, because as you run your trains, you may discover some changes that you would like to make in the track before applying the ballast. And obviously it's better to make those changes beforehand. Wiring. Lots of model railroaders say they really hate wiring their layouts. They say it's complicated, confusing, and even scary. You have to learn new skills and you have to buy new tools to do wiring. And many in the hobby are intimidated by the prospect of wiring their layouts for DCC. Well, who could get excited about crawling under the layout where it can be dark and cramped to do wiring, where hot solder can drip on your face as you lie on your back under the layout? Who enjoys the prospect of making a mistake in the wiring and then having to troubleshoot the problem? Not me, certainly. Well, just like with ballasting, I have found that wiring isn't so bad when you use better techniques. I found that wiring a layout for DCC is actually easier and less complicated than wiring it for DC, which I have done in the past. I discovered that with DCC, you don't need a large control panel with all kinds of toggle switches, and you don't need to divide the layout into a bunch of isolated electrical blocks. I learned about things called suitcase connectors They're great for connecting drop feeders to the bus wires. More importantly, I learned about barrier strips. I really like these. I insert my drop feeders and my bus wires into spade connectors, and then I connect the spade connectors to the barrier strips. It's so easy, even I can do it. I don't have to do any soldering. Besides, they keep the wiring neatly organized, easy to troubleshoot, and easy to change later on if I need to. To me, there's nothing worse than a spaghetti bowl of wire under the layout. I like to keep my wiring well organized, carefully labeled, and easy to reach. I can do my wiring under the layout sitting in a chair instead of lying on my back. And on top of the layout, I don't have to solder my feeders to the track. I use these Cato terminal unijoiners which come with drop feeder wires. You simply install them on the rails, and then you drop the wires through a hole which you've drilled under the track, and then you connect the wires to barrier strips under the layout. Again, this is so easy that even I can do it. I have a lot of unfinished wiring to do on my layout and wiring that I want to redo, so I will soon be doing a video on wiring my layout. When wiring your layout, go slowly. Do it step by step. Test everything as you go. Be sure to label all of the wiring, both under the layout and on a copy of your track plan. I have found that wiring doesn't have to be totally unpleasant as long as I do the things I just mentioned. Well, maybe you do these kinds of things and you still hate wiring. Be sure to say so in the comments section down below. Okay, ballasting and wiring are the two things that model railroaders seem to hate more than anything else, but they are not the only things. For example, benchwork. Some model railroaders say they hate building benchwork. Trying to build benchwork on the basement floor without proper tools and without the necessary skills can be very frustrating. When I was younger, I enjoyed building benchwork, but as I've gotten older, it has become more and more challenging. I don't have a workshop. I don't have a table saw. I don't have an electric miter saw. So I have to struggle along with a few handheld tools, and that makes benchwork harder and less fun to do. I build my benchwork in the garage. As I build it, I have to apply insecticide, which smells awful, because wood-eating insects thrive down here in the tropical climate of Panama where I live. And they want to turn my layout into a pile of dust. Then I carry it up to my train room. Let's face it, lumber and plywood can be heavy, even when you build your benchwork in sections, as I do. It can be unwieldy when trying to move it. I'm not going to put skirting on my benchwork, as others do. Instead of using the space under the layout for storage, I use it for a desk, space for computer peripherals, and space for programming locos and doing other work. And since it's in the house, I want my benchwork to look like fairly nice furniture. Where possible, I've switched from building legs to support my benchwork to using strong L brackets to support it. Of course, being able to do this depends on the width, weight, and configuration of the tabletop. It works best for shelf-style layouts. Okay, what about you? How do you feel about building benchwork? Believe it or not, ballasting, wiring, and building benchwork aren't the only things model railroaders complain about. There also is trackwork. When I built my previous layout back in the 1980s, I used FlexTrack with all of the bending, cutting, and soldering that goes along with using FlexTrack. I know that FlexTrack is still very popular in the hobby, but it's not for me anymore. I need track that is reliable, convenient, easy to lay, and easy to change. That's why I use Cato Unitrack. It comes in a great variety of straight lengths and curved radii, so contrary to popular opinion, it does not limit me to toy-like track plans. Here, for example, is the graceful curve I've created where the track passes through Evanston on my layout. I also believe in avoiding hidden track, such as in tunnels and helixes, if possible. Hidden track can be difficult to access for cleaning and for fixing derailments. I want all of the track on my layout to be accessible and within easy reach, not any deeper than 18 inches from the front of the layout. That is why I like shelf-style layouts so much. Speaking of track-related tasks that many modelers don't like, there is one, and that is track cleaning. On my layout, I use a CMX track cleaning car, which makes this task a little less unpleasant. There are a few other tasks that some model railroaders don't like. Let me just mention them. They include layout planning. I think some in the hobby don't like to do layout planning because they associate it with armchair model railroading, with procrastination, and with making difficult decisions. You could spend an entire lifetime just trying to come up with the perfect track plan. Or you could pay a professional to do it for you. My layout is based on a real-world prototype, the Union Pacific Evanston Subdivision in southwestern Wyoming and northeastern Utah. For me, trying to design a layout based on the prototype that would fit my limited space was very exciting. This is the plan I came up with. The tracks in red show my most recent addition to the layout. I didn't want my trains to run back and forth through a scene more than once. I didn't want a spaghetti bowl of track. I didn't want my layout to be jammed packed full of structures. I wanted to capture the feel of the region I am modeling, and I wanted one or more staging yards. To me, staging yards represent off-layout destinations for my trains, and without staging yards, trains can look like they're just going around in circles. Building structures. Some guys love building structures, and they're very good at it. For example, here's the Union Pacific depot at Green River, which my friend David Rarick built for me. But I'm going to be honest here, I don't really much care for building structures, whether it's scratch building, kit bashing, or even just putting together kits. I can't seem to get enthused about doing it. That's why the Evanston area of my layout has been languishing for such a long time. It's waiting for me to put together the structures that I need for that area of the layout. Then there's the related task of airbrushing. I have an airbrush, and I like the results I get with it, but I don't like messing around with its various components, and I don't like all of that cleanup afterwards. Scenery. For those of us who enjoy building scenery, it does seem hard to believe that anyone might not like scenery work. Well, you may have seen those incredible layouts consisting of benchwork, track, and wiring, but no scenery. Some guys just never seem to get around to building the scenery. Too often I think it's overlooked when planning the layout, something to be thought about and then added later on. I do think it's a good idea not to rush into doing the scenery work. Just like with ballasting, it's better to run the trains for a while to make sure that you're happy with the arrangement of the track before doing the scenery. But I also think it's a good idea to plan for the scenery in advance instead of trying to squeeze it in around the track as an afterthought. Operations. The fact that some guys might not care to run operations may seem even harder to believe than the fact that some don't like building scenery. For many of us, the main reason for building a layout is to be able to run operations. But some guys are not enthused about doing things like car cards and waybills. They may be baffled by things like switch lists. They feel that it's a pain to do all of that paperwork associated with operations. And in the case of N-scale, trying to read those tiny road numbers on the cars can be a challenge. I enjoy classification and interchange operations, but I'm not especially interested in doing industrial switching, which is so wildly popular, especially in HO scale. Maybe those who aren't into operations just want to run trains, or maybe they have no interest in running their layouts like the prototypes do. Some guys actually lose interest in their layouts after building them, and then they tear them down and start over, doing really small stuff. Doing really small stuff can challenge many model railroaders. It certainly challenges me. I'm referring to doing things like installing decoders and changing couplers in N scale. Those really small parts tend to pop out of your hands and go flying away, never to be found again. And I have to wear optical visors to do these kinds of things, and I don't especially enjoy wearing them. Okay, I promised to tell you what I most hate to do on my layout, and here it is. It is speed matching. Yes, I have an AccuTrack speedometer too, and yes, I do use JMRI to set the CVs for start, max, and mid speeds. But mostly, speed matching is a process of trial and error, changing the settings over and over and over until the diesels run well together, more or less. You can spend hours trying to speed match a single pair of diesels, and after all that effort, it seems like they never run perfectly together. What's more, decoders sometimes lose the settings that you work so hard to put into them. Maybe this is caused by a short on the layout. But in any case, there you are again, trying to run two diesels in a consist which you speed matched before and which ran well together before, but which don't run very well together now. I just wish some genius out there would come up with an easy and foolproof way to do speed matching, because the way we have to do it now is making me crazy. Well, there you have it. I've identified the tasks that many model railroaders say they don't like to do. These tasks include ballasting, wiring, benchwork, track work, layout planning, structures, scenery, operations, really small stuff, and the one that I hate, speed matching. Now let me ask you, what task do you really hate doing on your layout? I'd like you to go on down to the comments section and identify that task. Then, as I promised at the beginning of this video, I will count up the results and do a follow-up video announcing the results next week. In fact, here's an idea. Why don't you identify the task you hate the most and the task that you love the most? Then I can announce the findings for both. How's that sound? But don't hesitate, because I'd like to announce the results next week. Well, I hope you enjoyed this assessment of the things that some in the hobby don't like to do on their layouts. If so, give it a thumbs up. And remember, I have tons of ideas for upcoming videos, so be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes on this channel. I do try to upload a new video each week, normally on Saturday mornings, and sometimes I upload a second video during the week if I can. So for now, I'd like to thank you for watching, and until next time, happy railroading. I will see you again very soon.